So I'll just click on finished for right now. Then okay, so now we'll be working mainly on LTM module, which is local traffic. So first we need to create node. So in order to create node, we first need physical end device. So I'll just export the web server. So for right now I'll be using green web server, and I'll just open with VM workstation. I will name it green web server and leave the default file location, and I'll just import. It will take some time, and now once it has been completed, as we have discussed earlier, the internal network, which is 10.2.0.0/24, on this network space, which is the 1.2 interface, we will use the web server or physical backend server will reside on this network space, which is on network adapter 3. So what we need to do is we just need to go to the green web, and on settings we will VMnet 2. So VMnet 2 virtual network adapter 2 will be mapped to the VMnet 2 will be configured on the new green web server, and once you click OK, so power on this virtual machine. So the default username is VMware and the password is same, VMware, all lowercase. And once it has been configured, you can see the IP. The IP for this web for this server is 10.2.0.10.2.0.22/24. So as you can see, this lies on the 10.2.0.0/24 network space. You can configure it from the following. From the following way. So username will be VMware and the password will be VMware. So, so if you cannot access through the GUI, then you can also change the IP address from the command line interface. So now let's check the connectivity from F5 IP system. We'll try to ping the device 10.2.0. I think it was 11. It was 22, sorry. So settings, VMnet 2. Okay, you can see the config. So it is, the IP address is 10.2.0.22/24. You can change, if you want, you can change the IP address of the green web server. So you just need to execute su and the default password VMware all lowercase. Sorry, it's already okay. Let's open the terminal and the password for the root will be the default root root password. So once you access as a root on the terminal of the green web server, just change the directory to etc, and when you list files, you just need to, in order to change the IP address of the green web server, which will be static, you just need to execute nano network.conf file. Here you can see the DHCP has been disabled and static IP has been enabled, and here is the IP. This is the networks, and the default gateway is 10.2.0.145. So in this way you can change and configure your required IP address as you want. So I will leaving the default IP address, which is 10.2.0.22 with a netmarks of 255.255.255.0. So once it has been configured, now you need to go to the GUI of F5, on the front page. Now go to the network. So as we have discussed earlier, now we need to create VLAN for the internal network. So we'll create internal VLAN, and you can rename with as you want. You can rename or you can name it as you want. So I'll name it as VLAN, internal VLAN 145, or internal. I'll just leave it to internal VLAN. Description: this is the VLAN for the internal network 10.2.0.0/24, and the interface will be as we have used for the internal network. It's 1.2 interface, so we will choose 1.2 and untag it and add, and let the other remain this default. So finished. So once you have made the internal VLAN for the internal network, now we'll go to self IP and we'll create a self IP. Let it name internal network server, and the IP address will be the default gateway, which is 10.2.0.145, and netmarks will be 255.255.255.0, and we'll choose the internal VLAN and select allow default port lockdown and leave the other rest as a default. Now what happens is when we what exactly, so now what happening is we have tagged 1.2 interface for the internal and 1.1 for external, 1.1 for external, and this will be for management as we have discussed earlier. So now, and this will be for 1.3 will be for HA. So what we just configured was we create a VLAN for this network space, which is 10.2.0.0/24 VLAN. And now when the request suppose this is the green server, so when now the 10.2.145 IP will be used as a gateway by the 10.2.0.22 backend web server when it needs to respond to the request which come when the traffic. So what happens is now 10.2.0.145 will act as a default will act as the gateway for the network space of 10.2.0.0/24. So when the request passes through the F5 through 1.1 interface and comes through the 1.2 interface, then S2 need to respond to the request. So when it responds, it goes to it acts as a 10.2.0.145 acts as a gateway for the S2 server. Now after everything is configured, we'll click on finished. Now let's try to ping from the F5 big IP system. If the configuration is correct, then we should be able to ping the S2 backend device. So we are successfully to ping the device. So then now we need to create a VLAN for external route 2. So create, and we'll give for external VLAN, and this is the VLAN for the external route. Now for the external route, the interface will be used 1.1. So 1.1 will be used for external, as you can see, 1.1 external route. So contact, add, and just leave it all that in default and finished. I will go to self IP and we'll create an IP. The name will be external route, and IP address will be, since 192.168.1.1, route will be, and this will be 255.255.255.0, and we'll click select on external VLAN, and we'll allow default.
We'll set up as 10.2.0.155. Then the device is currently active in the failover regarding the internal network, which interfaces the external network 3, which will use is going to be 192.1 tagged because we're not using in our topology that I associate with will use in combination with a high availability configuration, which will do another
Port lockdown self IP. So we'll allow the port lockdown to custom. So it will be external VLAN. default, we'll leave it allow default. Finished. And on route, we'll add a route for the external network, will be external destination so after the following configuration of self IP and VLAN, now we will add the node. So we just need to create, we'll go on node option of LTM module and click on create. We'll name it as green web server, and this is the web server. This is the green web server. On address, we'll give it 10.2.0.22. We'll put the address of the actual physical backend device, which is the actual address of green web server, that is 10.2.0.22. and health monitors we can specific, and we can use get to ICMP, and after that click on finished. And now we need to create a pool. So after a few minutes, after a few seconds, you can see that the green web server is on. This is the health status of the web server. So node address is available. Now we'll click on pools and create a pool. So we'll name it http pool, and description, this is the http pool. We can also assign health monitors on the pool. So we'll assign gateway _ICMP, and the load balancing method we can choose. We'll talk later about the load balancing method on our coming series. Since we have already created our nodes, so we can just browse to node list and click on HTTP service and just add and finish. So we have also created HTTP pool. Now just we'll browse to virtual server, click on create. So I will name it HTTP server. Description, I'll leave it blank, and the type will be standard. There are different virtual server type we will discuss on later series. Right now we will select standard, and the source address will be wildcard/0, whereas the destination MAC address we will give 192.168.1.145, and port will be HTTP port, and just go down and we will select auto map and leave the rest, and we will select the default pool. It will be HTTP pool, and finished. So now when we so this is the actual IP of the physical green web server. So when we try to access the IP address So when we enter the IP address, following IP address, it should also direct to the physical green web server. So yes, this is the Part-2 server. So what really happened was, uh, so what happened was, suppose this is the user, and so what happened was, I was the user. So when I made a request, it was directed to the virtual server of F5 on interface 1.1. So it directed the request to the backend device, which is the green server S2, through 1.2 interface, and S2 responded to the F5 through, and S2 responded the F5, and the F5 responded to me using the full proxy architecture. So this is how the request was made. At first, I just directly access the S2 green web server through the actual IP 10.2.0.22, and later on my second attempt, I used the virtual server F5 IP system, which directed my request to the S2 green web server, and it responded back through F5 following the full proxy architecture. So this is how the whole big IP. So as per our previous discussion, we'll be using the following IP address to the respective network adapter. So the big IP appliance network adapter first, the first network adapter will be used for the management purpose. So it will have a network space of 10.1.0.0/24. For the network adapter second, we will bridge with VM workstation with the purpose as external, and the networks, and since, as you can see, my external, as you can see, my connection Ethernet adapter, and the second network adapter will be used for external VLAN purpose, and it will be bridged with VMnet 0. The network space will be 192.168.1.0/24 and the 1.1 will be used. The interface for F5 IP system 1.1 will be used for the following network adapter. On the big IP appliance network adapter third, we'll use VMnet second 2, and it will be used for the internal purpose, and the network space will be 10.2.0.0/24, and the interface will be 1.2 on F5 IP system. Similarly, on the network adapter 4, we will use VMnet 3 of VM workstation adapter. It will be used for HA purpose, which we'll be discussing on the later series, and the network space will be 10.3.0.0/24 with an interface 1.3 will be used. So now as per our discussion of IP manage IP. So as per our discussion, now we will configure the network adapter. So just go to edit virtual machine settings, and so as per the discussion, now we will edit the IP addresses of the following network adapter. We'll go to virtual network editor, and as you can see, we need to add 3 network adapters. So I'll go to change settings. So there is bridged, and in network adapter 1 we will use 10.1.0.0 with a subnet max 255.25.25. Vnet to VMnet adopt. We'll be adding VMnet 2 with an IP address with a subnet IP 10.2.0.0, and the last VMnet 3 network adapter, and the IP will be 10.3.0.0, and this will be the final. Now we can see the newly configured virtual network adapter on VM workstation. Then we just need to assign the respective virtual VMware network adapter to the network adapter of FI big IP system. So we just go to edit virtual machines. Now the first network adapter will be used for VMnet 1. For the second, it will be bridged. For the third, we'll use VMnet second, and for the fourth, we'll use VMnet third. And after that, we click on OK. So as you can see, the first network adapter 1 is used for VMnet 1, which is used as management, and for the second adapter it is used for bridge, which is an external, and for the third we will use VMnet 2 host only, which is used for internal purpose with the following network address space, and the last network adapter 4 will used for HA purpose with VMnet third on VM workstation, and the network space is the following. So after all the configuration, just power on the instance. So just enter. The VM2's power and script did not run successfully in this virtual machine. You just can click on OK. the process will take some time.